listening to the Parts Pros podcast, the only podcast made specifically for automotive parts professionals. We're here to dive into the latest industry trends, expert strategies, and real-world solutions to drive success and boost your parts department bottom line. Hi, I'm your host, Amanda. I'm an automotive marketing expert with more than a decade of experience helping dealerships drive growth in the ever-evolving digital landscape. I've got two people from Revolution Parts here today, one of which I don't think you guys have ever met before, so I'll introduce her first. This is Kiata. She's our head of people here at Revolution Parts, and it is her responsibility to make sure that this entire company is a smooth, well-oiled, efficient machine. Kiata, you want to introduce yourself and talk about your background?
Yes, that's daunting. I'm Kiata Hughes. I've been in people operations for a really long time, over 25 years, specializing in tech and startups. And I've been with Revolution Parts for 2 years, and it's been a fun ride.
Thank you for being here. So the other person you guys have met before, we had Ibrahim on here last season for an episode talking about the future of the auto parts industry. But for those of you that don't know, this is Ibrahim. He is the CEO and co-founder of Revolution Parts. So he has been here since day one. Ibrahim, how long ago was that?
It was almost 13 years ago.
Almost 13 years ago, plus, a couple of years of experience before that, right?
That's right.
Ibrahim, why don't you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background?
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, my name is Ibrahim Mesbah. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Revolution Parts. I'm an engineer by trade. Prior to Revolution Parts, I was at eBay, PayPal, and really fell in love with e-commerce, all things payments and marketplaces, and just saw a need to take a lot of that passion in a big industry, automotive. One of our mutual friends ran a parts department here locally at a dealership called Showcase Honda, and it was eye-opening to see how hard it was for him to do the job well. So figured we could take a lot of this passion for e-commerce and do it at a pretty big space and have a pretty outsized impact. So that's how it all got started tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So you saw a pretty big gap in the industry and you decided you were going to solve that problem. And pretty much Revolution Parts is the only company that's still solving that problem to this day. So you are definitely doing something right because you're the only one that's been able to achieve what you have. Well, I wanted to bring you here today to talk about technology, AI, the tools that you're using to kind of revolutionize parts sales and e-commerce in general within this industry. But I really want to know, I've got some very specific numbers. I really want to know some details on dollar amounts, and Ibrahim is in the technical side of the business. So I think some of these questions that I ask, you should have some pretty good answers to. So Kiata, do you want to get us started?
Sure. Sorry, I had a little bit.
Shocking, the head of people has other things going on.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, it reminded me to eat lunch. Okay, so selling a $60 part online is a lot different than selling a $30,000 car. What are the biggest hurdles that parts managers face, and how are you helping them overcome those hurdles with tools like managed services or smarter marketing?
Yeah, so when we first started Revolution Parts, we really didn't want to get into the marketing services game, right? So we focused a lot on trying to build out the platform. And what we found was that there's a ton of marketing agencies that serve dealerships, but they really focus a lot on helping them sell cars, right? So obviously, if if you're selling something that costs about $70,000, you could spend quite a bit on marketing and driving demand of customers, right, and getting that deal closed. When you look at parts, right, a lot of parts departments have a limited budget, right? So what we saw is we sent a lot of referral business to all these agencies. They try to help dealers, so parts departments market their parts. And it was just really tough to drive an ROI and take a lot of the skills of driving $30,000 unit sales to driving sales to a $60 parts at the right margin. So we built that's when we decided to start offering that as a service. And really, the competitive advantage we have is that we have access to the parts data and we understand the margins, right? So we're able to really, it's a craft that we've honed over the years. Like, how do you drive the right ROI, right? And take a small $500 to $1,000 monthly budget to drive like 10x plus returns, right? So it's been a process, but we're getting better every year. and we're able to return pretty good returns on even smaller ad spends. And what we found is, parts is a bit of a low margin game, right? So our managed services / marketing team is really able to maximize returns, right? And really, we see customers grow and more successful, and depending on the brand, unlock back-end money. So it's been a huge asset, right? Where we're able to provide not just the platform, but the services along with it that really drives returns.
Yeah, you got to be a lot more intentional with your marketing when your margins are as tight as parts marketing is. I mean, you don't have $300, $400, $500 to spend just to get somebody in the door like you do with a car. You've got a few dollars to get them in the door, and you really need them to make that purchase. So it takes an expert in parts marketing to really be able to do that.
Absolutely.
All right, so I've got a question for you. You've mentioned before that people are now seeing over $12 in return for every $1 spent on ads. So it went from, I think it was 7x a couple of years ago to 10x to now we're at nearly 12x return on ad spend on marketing for parts. What drives that kind of return, and what should dealers know before they get started?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to use AI for a lot of the bidding strategy, which is helping us be more efficient, but we're also using a lot of data that we have, right, to help make that better, make those returns better. And frankly, we've just gotten better at marketing, do parts marketing over the years, right? So our team is one of our most tenured team.
Yeah, shout out to the best. They're such a great team.
Right, and they've just honed their craft year over year, right? Like every year we go, all right, how do we do a little bit better, right? And raise that bar. So I think the good news is we work with dealerships, take their limited budget, and they trust us to deliver the most return, right? So that level of autonomy and flexibility allowed our team to be creative. And we work very closely with our customer to say, well, if you're going to price it this way, this is the type of returns that you'd expect. But here's what we recommend, right? And it's not just about getting the first customer, getting a new customer through the door, is like getting that customer to come back, right? So what we see is at the end of that 12x, right, you've acquired that customer, they've had a good experience, and come back, right? And part of the additional services that we offer is really that retention marketing, is how do you get that same customer to come back and purchase? We have a lot of trigger-based marketing campaigns. Like, for example, I bought maintenance parts, brakes, right? 12 months from now, there's reminders to buy brakes again, to actually a car. So there's stuff like that that's really tied to the type of products that you're buying, with the intention of like bring that customer to come back. So that, we're not just acquiring the customer once, because that gets very expensive.
And we all know, our return listeners especially know how much I love Gensay, so shameless plug for our consulting services team here. If you want to know how to price, if you want to know how to market, if you want to know how to run your e-commerce, we do have an entire team of people whose entire job it is to help you strategize and plan and really guarantee your ROI. So our consulting services team deserves a shout out given all of the information that you just talked about.
And just one thing to say about that. So our consulting team, I mean, they were customers that really grew.
We stole.
They have a huge passion for the industry and for helping other dealers drive success, right? So they were on the other side of the table, like using Revolution Parts and try to grow their part sales. So they're an immense asset. And if you talk to Gensay or anybody on Gensay's team, you'll see the passion shine through. Like, he really deeply cares about helping other dealers be successful, right?
Absolutely.
Ibrahim, what motivated you to undertake the task of digitally transforming the auto parts sales industry? And what specific business objectives did you aim to achieve with it?
Yeah, I mean, just going from my intro, right? I think what was very intriguing, and it was how hard it was to sell things online, right? I think parts suppliers or sellers really are faced with very unique challenges, right? It starts with a really messy data set, a very complex and large catalog with a lot of applications that and the data set's constantly changing, right? There's always new parts, new vehicles, having to marry that up with the right pricing, the right shipping, and make it e-commerce ready. I mean, that was a pretty big, hairy problem that got us intrigued. We were naive enough to think that we can solve parts of it. Like, we're still working on solving more of it every day. But yeah, I mean, that was the impetus. This can be solved, this problem, remove a lot of friction, a lot of waste, and make life easier and help customers sell more parts, right, online. So that's sort of how it all started, and that's been what's driving us every day, is how do we remove a lot of this friction and waste out of the process, the buying process or the selling process. Whenever you look at that journey, there's just friction every step along the way. So we're trying to remove a lot of those friction points, so it's as easy as buying toilet paper on Amazon today, right?
I love that. And I'm in the marketing department, so I know about a lot of the problems that we solve. And it is crazy. I've never worked for a company that solves as many problems as Revolution Parts does, from efficiency and time and income and ROI just in your day-to-day, your investment in people, your investment in your storage space, your investment in your warehouse. Obsolescence. There's the list of problems being solved by Revolution Parts is pretty endless.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why we exist, right? Because, I mean, this industry is very unique, right? So we're not only solving e-commerce, but we're doing it for parts, right? And there's very unique challenges starting with data, like we talked about, that we're solving.
Absolutely. Okay, but how do you balance the need to innovate with the risks associated with new technology implementation? It seems like it'd be pretty hard to constantly be creating new technology and innovating, but also balancing all of the risks that come with constantly bringing new technology to this market.
Yeah, and it's, like you said, it's a balancing act, right? So we have to choose where to innovate, right? And then try to leverage what we can. Like, we don't need to solve problems that have already been solved, maybe in other categories, right? But it's also catering the right solution for the right customer, right? So when we work with dealerships, right, there's a lot of dealerships that have never sold online, right? So how do we create the right solution, the right package, so they can ship more of their inventory without necessarily taking on a lot of this complexity? And as they get more comfortable and grow, then maybe they could start selling across channels, not just their own branded web stores, but maybe fulfill orders from an OEM Tier 1 store, a marketplace that has more stringent requirements, right? But yeah, I mean, we always, right, we really need to, like, we sharpen our focus on where we innovate to make sure that it's as impactful as we can be, right, in the short amount of time.
Fantastic.
So I have a question. So you've mentioned the customer a lot. Obviously, we are pretty customer obsessed. Sometimes some may argue to a fault. So my question is, how do you handle it when you get criticism or feedback from customers and stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, we view feedback as a gift, even if it's not pleasant to hear sometimes, because it's always an opportunity to do better, right? Like, where are we missing the mark? How do we either improve our processes or reset expectations or, right, feedback. I think the worst thing is not getting feedback. Obviously, it's always great to get good feedback, but, right, we take even the not so good feedback to heart and really think about it from the perspective of what can we do better, right?
No news is not necessarily good news.
No.
Not in this industry.
No.
All right, what does the future of digital transformation look like for the auto parts industry and for auto parts sales in general?
So, I think things are very rapidly evolving, right, with e-commerce and AI in general, right? But also, like, the way we think about it and what kind of our vision is to get dealerships to collaborate more. At the end of the day, deliver a better customer experience and a better brand experience, right? So we're really excited about the partnerships we have with automakers, right? Because we can use that platform to really help evolve how business is done with dealerships, right? And really leverage their footprints across the dealerships and the distribution centers to really help improve that experience, right? So we're focusing a lot on really thinking of our dealers as not just selling in a silo online with their own brand, but really in the back end, they're part of a larger network. Dealers do this today, even outside of e-commerce, right? They work with each other. They collaborate with dealerships across the street, sometimes across the country, right? How do we enable that in an easier way, right? So that dealers can support one another. And at the end of the day, remove, again, a lot of waste and friction and make the buyer happier, put more profit in more of their pockets, right? Enhance the brand experience for the automaker. One thing that drives us nuts is the average part still ships 900 miles, right? And it flies the dealerships that have the same stock, right? So we would rather see dealerships work better together so that you're not shipping this part 900 miles and having the buyer wait for days to get their part, and then gets there and it might be damaged. And again, there's a lot of friction along the way. So our vision is to enable really this network, right? And build the most active parts network that we can by enabling this collaboration that we have customers on the back end.
That's a really good point, because if you go to a local dealership and their alignment rack is down, or their service department's completely backed up, most of the time they're not going to send you home without one. They're going to either send you to a neighboring dealership, or they're going to go take it to that dealership themselves to get it done. And if you can do that with service, and you can get cars from other dealerships so that you can still make the sale on the vehicle, why can't you do that with parts?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it takes, what we're seeing is a lot of our part dealers are more open to that. Definitely the OEMs are doing it more. There's more of an appetite to really innovate and really think about how we have a more efficient supply chain by working together, right? So that's exciting.
So you mentioned AI, and so I know that technology does play a big role in the future of the auto parts industry. But can you talk about how you're fostering innovation within Revolution Parts, and what role maybe AI or other technology is playing in that?
Yeah, of course. So a couple of things that we do. Well, first of all, with AI, we are really enabling every team in the company to adopt AI as best as they can, right? So we make tools available, we share best practices, and we really believe that AI is almost like a superpower for each and every one of us. And if we can use AI to be more productive, to go faster, to experiment quicker, there's a place for it across the company, right? When we think about kind of our products and our offering, right, we think about it as there's really three different ways to leverage AI. One, how do we evolve and transform that shopping experience? Could AI be used as almost a co-pilot, right? Because one of the friction points with car parts, many times the buyer doesn't even know what they need. Like, what is this thing called, right? Can I describe it? Can I describe symptoms and have essentially AI help us diagnose the issue and recommend what parts are needed, right? Of course, you have to be careful there, because you don't want to recommend your own parts and end up with liability. So it's something that we're testing and experimenting with, right? On the back end, can you help sellers, right, understand how their business is doing and how they should price and what they should feature and right, and how you optimize some of the fulfillment? So there's a lot of AI applications there. And then finally, on the data side, how do you use AI to have better and more descriptive content, product descriptions, maybe convert some of the images so that they're more appealing? And we're really excited about AI. This is a big focus for us, and we're going to continue to really invest more heavily in really removing those friction points and evolving both the buying and the shopping experience. Sorry,
That's awesome.
shopping experience.
All right, so you've talked a lot about how you want this company to go and how we work on solving problems for people. I have a question. What has been your proudest moment as a CEO, and why was it your proudest moment?
That's a hard question, because I can there's a lot of moments that kind of popped in my mind, but I can tell you one of the coolest moments is when we got our dealer to write us a monthly check. When we first started the business, we used to sell, it wasn't a SaaS business. So we built some software, we'd go to the dealership and say, hey, you need to set up a GoDaddy server, and we'll put our software in there. And it was like $10,000 a month. And then we would charge people for upgrades. And they were like, well, instead of doing that, are you willing to pay us every month? And I remember we were kind of like scared asking that question. This was, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. But yeah, so then he's like, no, sure, yeah, that sounds good. Here's a check. And I remember Andreas and I looking at each other like, whoa, that's cool. But yeah, I mean, we've had many milestones, right? Our first OEM deal was a really big achievement because that was sort of validation that we are adding enough value, we're good enough to do business directly with an automaker, right? Closing our first big group, like we right, and seeing customers, like some of our early customers, seeing their sales go from, $20,000 a month to over $1 million. We started doing awards for our customers and just celebrating them win and grow. Showing up at our offsites, right, and just looking around the room and seeing how awesome and big our team is, and right, like it's rewarding and it's fulfilling and it's really great. But I do have a lot of proud moments, and it's reinforced almost every week, honestly.
That is an excellent answer. Okay, before we sign off from this episode of the Parts Pros, Kiara, I would love if you would just share a little bit about your vision for Revolution Parts and what you're working on. Because I think being a member of our leadership team, you also have a lot of things going on, maybe from a different perspective than Ibrahim does.
Thanks for asking that question. So I believe in the vision. So that's the first thing. Even though I do have ideas, I do believe in what we're trying to do here is a viable option to solve a very real, very widespread problem. And that's like the first thing. If your technology doesn't do that, then I mean that's what it is. That said, we really want to do it by hiring smart, curious people who want to have an impact and who want to win. So if we can get those people in a room together, we can do anything. So that's the general. And I want to do that in an empathetic, thoughtful, people forward way where we balance how to have a positive work experience with how to be a positive contributor to the tech world. So I think that would sum it up. My hope for 2026 is that we do all of that, yet do it a little more efficiently, a little more thoughtfully, because even if we do it pretty well, and I think we do, we can always do better. One of my favorite things about you even asking us to do this, Amanda, is that I'm glad that we got to do this, is because it shows that Ibrahim and our leadership team are very open to hearing how to do things differently, and they're very open to being like, you're right, your idea is better, let's do it your way. And I say that when I interview people, and they might not believe it, but it's true. Like, the best idea wins, it doesn't matter who has it. And so I want that to continue to grow. So I think that pretty much sums it up for me.
Very well put. Well, if you're interested in growing and learning and challenging and being a part of an awesome company that has a lot of awesome things ahead in 2026, visit revolutionparts.com/careers. I know that right at this moment, we have a lot of positions open because our company is growing massively all the time. So whether you're in marketing or engineering or operations, go ahead and visit, again, revolutionparts.com/careers. That's it for this episode of the Parts Pros. Thank you guys for being here. This has been awesome. And thank you everyone for tuning in. For more information on the Parts Pros and our official e-commerce sponsor, Revolution Parts, visit partsprospodcast.com. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, or again, on our website, partspros.com, so you don't miss our next episode. Thank you everybody, and see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Bye, everybody.
Bye.